Okay, so tonight we are going to talk about the culture in China and things to expect when you get there, some of the differences that you might find versus our expectations in America. And there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things to just kind of tuck in and into your head and um, be able to expect. I wanted to just start out with my story of when we adopted my daughter Cassie, and she was little. She was only 20 months old, and we took her in a stroller everywhere. She wasn't walking yet, so I was at the White Swan in Guangzhou, which is a really nice five-star hotel. It's not where everybody stays anymore, but it's still where dignitaries go. And I was waiting for an elevator, and the elevator was full. So I just kind of waved my hand and stood there, and I thought I would wait for the second elevator. And then a business meeting let out somewhere in the hotel, and all these businessmen came to wait for the elevators. So I very quickly learned that no one lets the lady with the kid in the stroller in first, and you pack as many little Chinese men into an elevator as possible. So, and then they continue to snort and talk up loogies and stuff like that. So don't ever be surprised by the lack of personal space that you have in China. The fact that I feel like women are definitely not shown the chivalry that we see sometimes in America. Doors are not held open for you. You're not first on the elevator just because you got there. It's whoever rushes in first gets a spot. So those are kind of things to know. It's just it's a whole different world over there. So I just wanted to start out tonight by telling you my story and then just hitting some highlights. My husband and I just sat down and just started discussing things that we realized were different and just done differently. So the first thing I want to talk about is the face in China, meaning the fact that the Chinese do not want to be embarrassed in any way. And a lot of times this is, the orphan situation is a source of embarrassment. So they do their best to try to present themselves as being, how to say this, well, like you won't necessarily be allowed to go in to see an orphanage that's not an orphanage that's very, very well taken care of. They want to show you their best orphanages and the best care that the kids get. That you probably, if you have a child who's not in a very well-off orphanage, it's very possible that you may not be given permission to go there. So just things like that. So as I was looking at, I looked up the face of China this afternoon in the research that I had. Let me try to find my phone. Here it is. So I found this one article. It was very good. So I sent it to myself in an email. Let's see if I can find it. It is written by a teacher that went to China and then had the experience of playing some activities with the students at the school, the teachers at the school, and the parents of the students. So it was Americans, teenagers, professors, and the teenagers' parents. So he gave an example of a story. I'm trying to find my email here. I just want to give you the link to it so that you can write it down and then you can read this yourself, because it was really a very, very good explanation. It's called it says, what does losing face mean? The importance of face in Chinese culture. And so the link is, let me get it. Okay, here it is. It's www.yoyochinese.com. So that's YOYO Chinese.com /blog / and then there's a dash in between each word. What dash does dash losing dash face dash mean dash importance dash face dash Chinese dash culture. And I'll put this up on the website when I load this video for the recording, so you guys can just click on it. But I mean, it was really helpful in explaining the that during this time that they were invited to do these activities, kind of like a I don't know, one of the games they said was carrying a ping pong ball with chopsticks to a certain place and coming back. And it was other, like, you know, three-legged races, things like that. So they were all four on different teams. And so the Chinese won some, the students won some, the parents won some, and the Americans won some. But this one race with the chopsticks and the ping pong ball got very, very serious because they didn't think the Americans had a chance of winning. And then the Americans beat them really badly. And so what happened was the teachers were embarrassed by the fact that they didn't win. And then on top of that, they were embarrassed because their students were there and their students' parents were there. So it was a big upset between the different entities and the age groups within the culture there. So it was just the fact that it was chopsticks. The Americans weren't supposed to be able to do the chopsticks well, and then they beat them by a very large margin, and they were embarrassed. And the one thing that I got out of that blog, I wrote down, it's the face is part of Chinese manners and relationships, and that the goal is to promote social harmony. So a lot of times it's not the winning that's important, it's the preserving harmony that is important. So the one big goal that this person said about going into China is to be gracious. Don't always think that you have to be the best or show them that you're the best, because a lot of times they're going to be looking for you to be humble and allow them to do what they do well, and then us as Americans do our traditional thing well. So anyway, that's kind of what the gist of it was to be gracious and promote the harmony of the relationships. And the relationships are really big. I tell a lot of people when we send care packages, you know, they say, well, what do we write in our letter? And I say, brown nose, you know, tell them, thank you for caring so much for our child. Thank you for being willing to give our child this package. What can we do for you? Do you need anything physically, like diapers or formula? What can we bring for you? All of that shows your desire to make a relationship with China and with the orphanage itself. And that is what China's all about, is having that relationship and creating that relationship. So that's kind of the big thing, the big cultural difference. And so, but I'm going to go through just some other little stuff that we kind of picked out, my husband and I. One of the things that you should know when you are going to China is if you're going to go to Beijing, a lot of times the touring facilities that you go to are government-run facilities. So they set the prices, and they're usually higher than someplace else. You're not allowed to barter there, and basically what they say goes. So if you're looking into guiding or arranging a trip with an entity that's based out of China, meaning not that your agency doesn't make those plans for you, you can pretty much believe that you're going to be going to set spots where, like, you go to a restaurant and, oh my gosh, there's a cloisonne factory underneath the restaurant, and let's go tour that. And really what it is it's all staged, and it's basically to get you to spend more money. It's all about commerce. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of go over that. There is bartering in China, and for the most part, you'll find that there's a lot of mom and pop local stores that literally are holes in the wall. They have, like, I don't know, it's just not like America where we have a nice front door and displays in the windows. It's just a lot more basic. I guess is the way to put it. I feel like China is a simple country and everything is simplified so much more than our life. So their stores are simple. They have, sometimes they have a gate that comes across, sometimes they have actual doors. Sometimes you walk through and it's like these giant pieces of vinyl that are kind of cut into slats, and you just walk through them, almost like they're keeping in the air conditioning, but it's not really a door. Um, so the bartering is very, very much allowed in these mom and pop stores. For instance, if you go shopping into a little dress store, shoe shopping, something like that, a lot of times you can barter in the mom and pop stores. And you'll know the difference. You know, in Walmart, there's set prices, you'll see them, you'll pay them. 7-Elevens are the same way, but when you get into the stores that have, you know, a little Chinese lady sitting on a stool, you know, doing embroidery, and she's got embroidery all over her store, you can bet that you can barter with her. And I had said on one of my other webinars to leave your diamonds at home, because the more bling you show them, the more they're going to think you're going to be willing to pay a higher price. And that kind of goes hand in hand with the fact that they think that all Americans are rich. And so they will follow you around. They, a lot of Chinese, they just want to look at you. Especially if you have blonde hair. We went to China, our first adoption, with my daughter who has curly hair, like the ringlet curly hair, and blonde. So they actually came up behind her and touched her hair without asking, and that kind of freaked her out. So anybody who's blonde, anybody who's very, very tall, not a lot of facial hair in China, but some, and I don't know, blonde hair just really, like my daughter, they thought she was Britney Spears. It was really weird. They followed her around and there was actually a crowd there. So anyway, foreigners do really stick out, especially if you're carrying around a little your new child. You know, it's a foreigner with a baby, and that just brings out the curiosity as well as the fact that you are American. I'm just looking down here at my notes. One thing that we ran across one of our first trips in China was children begging for money. Little tin cup, and you know, cute little outfit on, little hat and stuff, and they would just run up to you and they'd shake their coin in the cup and try to get you to give them a donation. And so we did, and we got back in the bus, and I remember our guide saying, those probably aren't even their real children. And we were like, what? And she said, yes, sometimes beggars on the street or people on the street, to make money, they will pay to use someone else's children as the begging entity. So they're cute and they break our hearts, but really they're from a family down the street and it's not even this person's child. So that kind of caught me by surprise. What they will actually go to great lengths to try to get money. And they probably need it, quite honestly. You will not see wheelchairs around. You will not see ramps. There just isn't handicap access in China. It's crazy. My girlfriend went to China to pick up her daughter who was deaf, and she took along her daughter who was adopted from China who had spina bifida. And she was paralyzed from the waist down, so they had a wheelchair with them. And they literally stood out on the side of the street in the rain and watched as taxi after taxi after taxi passed them, because no one wanted to pick up the child with the special need. And, you know, I've heard a wide range of reasons why, from the fact that they feel like you're cursed if you have an outside special need, you know, to just, they don't want to mess with handicapped people. So I recommend it if people are getting a child who can't walk, that they put them in a stroller of some sort instead of a wheelchair, because you really are, you really can be looked down upon by the society there. On the flip side, there are so many people in China that will give you the thumbs up and smile at you and clap and want to shake your hand because you have adopted one of their children. And it is, I don't know, it's just, it really, it's sweet, I guess. You know, it's just heartbreaking that the culture is the way it is. And so there are people who they're just happy that their children are getting a chance somewhere. And of course, the US is just a big, big deal. So I remember when I was walking along the street with our first adoption, and I remember thinking to myself, you know, any one of these women could be my child's mother, my child's biological mother. How many of these women have had to give up one of their children or haven't have one of their children taken from them? So you never know. A woman who comes up to you on the street and they want to, you know, say thank you or give you a, you know, thumbs up, they may have had that experience that they didn't get to keep a child that they birthed. So it's really kind of weird. Some people, it's, you know, the special need thing where, you know, they don't want to get near you. And then there's the other side where people are congratulating you and thanking you. And they say, you're number one mom, number one dad. And I even get that here in America. We have a family that lives in our area, and they have a small, little, tiny Chinese restaurant. And we go there all the time for our birthday celebrations and things. And they always say, you're wonderful. You're number one. And they're very thankful that we're giving their children a chance. So it's really neat. Okay, so let's see what else I have. One thing that the Chinese do that we don't do is they drink their water warm. They do not have ice. They do not drink their own water. I think I said that before about taking Ziploc bags to put over top of your faucets. But they just don't drink things cold. Refrigeration is not something that they do. So warm water is typical in a restaurant, and actually a sign that they actually boil the water. So they're showing you, well, we boil this water, it's hot, so it's okay to drink. There is nothing better than a big giant Coke with a bunch of ice in it when you get home from China. It's just the best thing ever. So anyway, and I've actually heard of people taking an ice cube tray with them to China and making ice cubes in their little baby refrigerator because they want ice cubes. So that's not out of the line of possibilities if you can't do without your ice. Let's talk about like shopping. Walmart is there and Carrefour is there, which is kind of the European version of Walmart. And they lay all their stuff out that you pick from. You will see meat laid out. You will see chickens hanging up along like a line by the neck. It's like you just can't even believe the stuff that you're going to see. It's quite an adventure. And I really do impress upon you, go shopping sometime in a Walmart or something. Cool thing that they have there is usually their Walmarts and Carrefours are more than one level. So they actually have like this ramp that you can take your shopping cart up. And it has little grooves in it, and the grooves hook into the wheels of the cart. And you literally ride the ramp up to the second level or down to the first level, however that might be. So that's kind of a cool experience. Another thing that they have in their shopping is that a lot of times they will, I don't want to say assign a person to you, but if you walk in and someone comes to welcome you at the store, and this is more in like the uppity stores, they may follow you around the whole time. And they're not watching you to steal something. They're actually staying near you to carry your things for you back to the register as you shop. So if I were going and I was going to buy 6 things, the first thing I'd pick up, I would give to her. She would take it to the register, and it would be at the register waiting for me. And then once I'm done all my shopping, I go to the register, and she rings me up. So it's almost like a human shopping cart. You know, you just give them your things, and they take them to the register for you so that you have an ease of shopping. So that's kind of nice, and yet it can be a little kind of weird when somebody's following you around while you're trying to look at things, especially if you don't have any intention of really buying and you're window shopping. You'll find turtles, scorpions, frogs, all kinds of different sea life that are for sale. Every single piece of a cow is for sale. You know, there's nothing to waste in China at all. Another thing that they do is, my husband pointed this out to me, Meat is not their main ingredient, it's their flavoring. So you will find that there are cuts of meat in your entrees that are more fatty than we're used to. For instance, the Chinese think that the wings and the thighs are the best part of the chicken and that the breasts are dry. So you will pay almost like a reverse of what we do. The higher priced piece of meat there is the fattier meat, and the chicken breasts are the unwanted part of the chicken. So those of you guys that are, that you like the dark meat, that's what you're going to get most of the time in your meals in China. And then there's always a lot of vegetables and, of course, rice with every meal. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner is usually rice or noodles. Try to look here and see. Okay, I've got one page covered. Food is not American Chinese food. The Chinese cuisine is much more basic than the sauces that we have in our American Chinese restaurants. My daughter, for the longest time, would not let me throw away the hamburger broth after I browned hamburger. She would want to drink it. Another thing that I had happen is we went to this noodle place almost every day when we were in Xi'an getting my daughter Brighton, and they would literally serve you the soup the broth that the noodles were boiled in, like just water with noodle junk in it, and like maybe salt, and that was kind of your appetizer. And my friend Angela, she always said, "Oh, I never drink that. Don't drink that," but that's what they give you to kind of start out your meal. So a lot of the times, what you'll find in China with their they don't have a lot of sauce. They might have a broth on there that's very, very basic. Maybe just some sauteed garlic and salt, and maybe a turkey, or not turkey, probably chicken thigh or something like that. And then they'll boil a whole bunch of water with just that minimal stuff. So there's very little taste. A lot of the taste comes from soy sauce, and there's always usually some type of a hot, spicy sauce that you can put on your food. So, and if you want to write it down, the word for spicy is lada, L-A-D-A, lada. There's some other ones too. Suenda, I think, is sweet, and sienda is salty. Those are just a couple. But if you are somebody who likes spicy stuff, if you just say lada, they'll know that you want some spice in it. So that's just a little pointer. Let's talk about the kids and what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do within any given situation. First of all, I don't know if you guys know, but there are split pants in China, which basically means from about where our button is on our pants, the inseam all the way through around past your, past your rear end up to the other part of your waistline is usually snipped open or never even sewn up to begin with. So they literally are split open where we would wear underwear. And so you will see that there are kids peeing and pooping on the streets. A lot of times they'll find a grate and they'll just do it over the grate, but sometimes it's just wherever they squat. So mainly young kids. I never saw any older kids do that, but it's kind of like potty training out in public. They just go wherever they want. And like I said earlier, there's a lot of bodily function noises coming out of the males of the population. I don't think I ever saw a man blow his nose with a handkerchief. I think he just held one nostril shut and blew it out onto the street. So I know it's nasty, isn't it? So anyway, and it's just a lot of like hawking and clearing of the throat, and I don't know, it just was a lot of noise. So that's not something that people feel are not, it's not something that you don't do in public. You just do it. The men do it. A lot of times the little boys of the family are spoiled rotten. They call them the little emperors. And I think that it got its basis from the fact when there's a one-child policy that most of the most of the boys, they were the sought after sons, and they were the only one because there was only one child allowed. That's easing up now, as most of you probably know. But I've even seen in a lot of updates that we've gotten through Ladybugs in Love that the kids say the nannies say if they cry, give them candy. So that's their parenting mode of parenting is if you're bad or if you're crying, you get candy and you'll shut up because you're eating candy. So there might be a lot of undoing that's needed when you get your children. My husband brought up the fact that you don't point anywhere with your first finger. You will notice that when you point a direction or when they point a direction, they will use their whole hand. So if you're going somewhere, they will have you put your hand, they will use their whole hand like this and say, it's that direction. Pointing evidently is the equivalent of giving the middle finger in our country. So you don't want to point with one finger at anywhere. Just use your whole hand and kind of just hold it out and point that direction. You'll notice it right away. It's kind of an odd looking thing to us because we're not used to it. Another thing is the clothing police. We're getting into summer and probably most of you will travel fairly soon, but if you are going to some province where you're going to take your child out in public and it's cold, you are going to be expected to bundle your child up until they can't move. There is no heat in the orphanages most times, and so you will find that your child is wearing 2 or 3 pairs of pants, 2 or 3 shirts, and then like a snowsuit. So when I first got my daughter Cassie, 3 of us went for a walk, and it was January 7th or something like that. It was cold outside, but it was mild, and we were, out walking in the streets. And I'll never forget, this little lady came up and shook her finger at me and gave me a tongue lashing because my daughter didn't have enough layers on underneath her snowsuit. She kind of came up to the snowsuit and she pinched her shoulder and she was holding it out and, kind of showing that there wasn't enough bundles underneath of it. It was too empty inside. So just beware that you may be approached by women if they feel your child is not dressed appropriately. Obviously, if it's hot outside, do not bundle them up. I mean, they're your child. Kind of made me angry, and I kind of thought, if you wouldn't have abandoned my child, you never would have gotten to this point where I have to decide what they wear anyway. So that was kind of my thought for a little while. It just was like, you don't take care of them, so they're mine now, and I'll take care of them the way I want to. But again, there's that face thing, and we have to be gracious, and we kind of have to go with the flow of the fact that we're in their country, and we need to respect that and respect the way they do things. So anyway, let's see here. Very little personal space in China. People get close to you all the time. People will rub elbows with you if you're in an elevator or you're in a closed space. People don't skip a chair and sit 2 chairs away from you. They just sit right next to you. And so just expect that. And one other thing I said, nobody lines up to do anything. It's always a bunch of people waiting to do something. So like a line at a grocery store or a line waiting to get in someplace just doesn't happen. They just all crowd in and push and shove to get to where they need to go. So that's something else to be aware of. And I think that's about it. That's most of the stuff that I wrote down. One other example I wanted to show you or tell you guys about with the special needs and being visible and how you're judged is I had a girlfriend who went to China and adopted a little girl with albinism. And of course, her hair was white, her eyes were light colored. And they went into a restaurant and people moved away from them when they were eating and then actually left the restaurant. And so they were just spooked by her is the way my friend put it. And of course, she broke her heart. But she just knew, sometimes God gives you confirmation of that you're doing the right thing. And for her, that was it. She was never going to be anybody in that country because they were scared of her and they thought she was a curse. So, it's things like that that don't happen in our country and they do there. and it's good to be aware of stuff like that. So that being said, opening up for questions. If you guys want to unmute yourself and ask any questions about the trip, about the process, whatever, I'm here at your disposal if you have anything written down. Anybody? You guys can also contact me at my email. It's I'm really easy to find. I'm all over Facebook, and my email that you can reach me at, probably the easiest right now, is a new email that I have because I started the dossier service. It's just dossierprep at gmail.com. So that's an easy one. If you go on ladybugsandlove.com, that's the care package service that we run, my friend Angela and I. And my phone number is on there, my email's on there. So please feel free. I really want to be here for you guys. I think that maybe the next time I am going to try to do kind of a special needs webinar where I go over special needs that I have in my family. And then if you guys want to pick my brain about other special needs that you're looking at or that you want more information about, I can try to have some websites available for you to reference them or tell you what I know about them. I have a huge amount of special needs in my family, so I feel like I'm a good resource for that. So I guess that's it. Elena, Rosalind, you guys have any questions? I can't see you, and you're muted, but and Van Dyke, you guys doing good? You got any questions?
What about like tipping, or do you need to worry about having money to tip, or is it all basically those gifts that you're supposed to give certain people?
You will get, you should get some guidance about that from your agency, but yes, tipping is definitely needed. And the gifts that you take are going to primarily be for the staff and the civil affairs officer. So those gifts will be given out as soon as you get your child or the second day when you go back to finalize. I like to give them the second day because I know a lot of people are fearful like that my gift won't be good or that they won't like it. But if you give it the second day and there's even more than one family there, they're not going to know whose gift is from who, and they won't open them in front of you. That's not, I've never had a gift opened in front of me. So, but the tipping, yes, definitely tip. You know, the dollar is what's like 5 to 1 right now. So you're going to constantly be calculating in your head, like what's appropriate. And I think that usually your agencies have a guide as to like a tip for a taxi driver versus a tip for a baggage handler versus a tip for, say, I don't know, some other service that you might get there. So I would actually ask your agency. I haven't actually been to China since 2010. And I know that that's what I looked at was, you know, the agency actually gave us guidelines. I'll try to find out what that is. And if you want to just write me a quick email and say, hey, I'm wondering about tipping, I can get back to you on that and I'll do a little research on that.
We can ask the agency too. We're just not that far along. We're traveling probably in July or August. So.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, getting informed is really huge. Hey.
Hi, did you end up getting cash like at the airport or through a bank, or how did you end up doing, like where's the best place to exchange, or did you do it beforehand and take Chinese currency with you there?
Right. Usually you take a lot of money in $100 bills, and China likes them to be very crisp and clean. And that is actually hard to get in the United States without really going to the bank quite early and saying, this is what I need. There are some very large banks that can get you brand new $100 bills. And that's, of course, like what they want. But what I did with my bank was I gave them a couple of days to basically save up some clean 100s for me. You know how bad those new $1 bills stick. And so you don't really want to accidentally give an extra $100 bill to anybody because they're sticking together. So almost new is probably what you're looking for. And yes, I would say that you could either get your bank to do the currency exchange, or in large airports, they usually have a little currency counter where you can change out a little bit of money just for like the first day. And then almost always you can get the currency changed at the hotel desk, or there's usually a bank next door conveniently. So, and then there's also a limit per day of how much you can exchange. A lot of times it's less at the hotel and of course more at the bank. And I really can't remember what we did. I know the donation, the orphanage donation is 35,000 RMB. And I can't remember if we paid that in dollars or RMB. I want to say that we paid it in RMB, so we had to kind of collect that over a few days and get that cashed in. So, but that's like a wad of money. Some agencies actually wire that orphanage donation for you, so that's also a big question to ask: is will you wire those fees for us? I know the last time that we adopted in 2012, I sent my husband with $20,000 in $100 bills, and he spent all of it. So it was, we did 2 adoptions though, too, don't panic. Between 3 weeks of hotels and paying 2 orphanage fees and feeding the amount of people that was my husband and my daughter and son-in-law, and then we adopted 2 kids. So by the end of the travel, it was 5. And we did 2 hotel rooms because my friend Angela was our guide. So they had a girls' hotel room and a boys' hotel room. So it was really expensive. But we had gotten back our adoption tax credit, which had built up over 6 years. So we actually had enough money to be able to splurge and have that option of having 2 hotel rooms and that kind of thing. It's the only time that ever happened.
Did you had to
anyway, yeah, get a little bit cashed in, and then you'll just kind of cash it in every day as needed.
Did you have to pay the hotel bills even in cash, or how many places take credit cards?
No, we did that. Actually, a couple of times we had points that we used. A friend of ours had donated points for us, which was awesome. But the other times we just used a credit card. You will get a small discount if you use cash, though, and it's usually like maybe 2% or 3%. To us, if it's that minute, it's really not a big deal whether we pay with a credit card or not.
What about other places with credit cards? Are there? I mean, I imagine
more and more they are accepted, but I would tend to say that you're going to want to take cash for your meals and anything that you purchase there that's going to be small, like you might want to buy a T-shirt that says the Great Wall or something like that. You're going to need cash for those kind of things.
Yeah. Have you heard of? We've had a couple different people tell us that there was cases that they were, I don't know if it was at the customs office when they were leaving or what, that they were asked for a bunch of extra money.
This was through somebody else. This wasn't.
I don't know. Right. This is like second or third hand, but
Okay.
It was 2 different people that had heard this, that there was cases where I think it was when they wanted to leave the country, the customs check or whatever. And at that time, then they were forced to come up with a bunch of extra cash or money to pay to the Chinese government or official. Have you heard of anything like that? Or
I have not heard of that. I have heard of extra fees being asked for if you need something expedited quickly. For instance, when I got my older girls, literally our process was 4 months because my daughter was aging out. And so because of that, the second daughter that I was getting, her paperwork wasn't quite ready. So we traveled a couple of days later than originally planned and then had to be back for our medical appointment quickly. So I had to pay an extra $100 to expedite the passport. But I have not ever heard of cases for China of people being, basically extorted for more money to get their child to leave the country, to pay off an officer. No, that is very common in Eastern European countries where they say take $10,000 extra for bribes. But I do not feel like you're going to find that in China. I've been 8 times. I've never been asked for more money than what was stated on my agency fees.
Okay.
So I think you can be pretty comfortable feeling like what your agency tells you to take is what you're really going to need. Have a credit card with you in case, but I really don't think you're going to have trouble with the extortion kind of stuff that you see almost always in Eastern European countries. So, and that's why a lot of people feel drawn to China, because it's predictable and it's stable and fairly ethical. So I think you find more either dishonesty or uneducation with the files that you guys have presented for the medical files for kids, where you might find that either something's misdiagnosed or just skipped over, where we would find that that's a big deal, but maybe they don't think it is. I've had a couple of instances where, I mean, when I got my second son, I walked into the office and they handed me a color echocardiogram and said, he has a heart defect, you still want him. And I mean, I wasn't going anywhere without him, but sometimes you do get those little surprises. And so you have to be willing to be very flexible. But monetarily, I think you're really safe with what the agency says goes. I do recommend that you give a good tip to your guide if you feel that she did a good job, because a lot of times the guides are underpaid. I would say that more in province than in Guangzhou, and it kind of depends on your agency. But I would say that if you're using some type of travel service through your agency, that a lot of times the people who are actually doing the work are getting the least amount of money from what you paid, because everybody has their hand out, you know, running the office and, you know, president of the company and all that. I had a case where I had a guide once that she was only paid $300 to do a 2-week trip with us. And that was just, I mean, to me, that was just highway robbery. She was away from her family, and it was just a hard situation. And I took her $100 when I left. I had it, so I felt like she deserved it. That was a lot, you know, I mean, that was just a lot. But I just saw someone post on a group that was an agency rep that said, tip if your service was worth being tipped for. Don't feel like you have to tip people if they gave you bad service. I had a ride one time. We were staying at the Holiday in Shifu, which was basically about a 6-block walk, but you had to cross a river to get to the White Swan. And so my daughter didn't walk well, so we decided to take a taxi back from the White Swan back to the Holiday in Shifu. And so the taxi drivers, they like wait in line until, you know, it's their turn. So this man was ticked that we were only going 6 blocks. You know, like he wanted a fare to the airport or somewhere like that where he could get a good fare and a good tip. And he literally threw us all over that taxi the way he was driving. He was going really fast, and he was driving very recklessly because he wanted to get us there as fast as we could and then get his spot back in line again. So we didn't tip him at all because, I mean, he literally, we were thrown against the sides of the taxi. I was crazy. And Angela was just giving him a mouthful. I don't know what she was saying in Chinese, but it was loud and it was fast and it had the finger going. So, you know, she was giving him what for. So anyway, any other questions? Are we good? All right. So next week, I'm going to talk about special needs. I don't know if you guys are matched or not. And so I'm just going to kind of bring that up and just the different special needs that are out there. I'm just going to get myself a list of needs and try to kind of go up through what I know about. And you guys can ask questions if you want about different needs, and I can try to help you guys along the way. And also give you ideas of maybe different severities of different special needs as well. Because I have 2 kids with spina bifida, one's more severe than the other one. So anyway, thanks for listening. And we're going to jump back to Monday night next week. I'm sorry that I didn't do last night, but as I thought would happen, all hell broke loose at my house last night at 9 o'clock. So I was glad that I moved it from Monday to Tuesday. So you guys have a great week, and know I'm available if you need me privately. just give me a ring or text me or send me a message. So, you guys take care. Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome. See you next time.